Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Imperial Holonet. I am GID123, and I am joined by Red Leader Antilles and Connor. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
Sup?
And today we are going to review another comic. We are reviewing Scott Snyder's Batman: The Black Mirror. So yeah, let's get started. Who wants to give a little historical background on this comic?
I guess I will.
Sure.
So, the Black Mirror ran in Detective Comics for, I think, the final full year of Detective Comics before they hit the New 52 reboot button. And this was Scott Snyder's first work at DC after doing American Vampire, which he co-wrote initially with Stephen King. I think he's actually a student of King's. And he was kind of the indie horror guy. And so his big break in DC was Detective Comics, and this was one of those stories that got a lot of attention and got a lot of acclaim. And then when they did the New 52, this is really what got him onto the Batman proper title. So that's kind of what it is. And then he collaborates with Jock, the artist, as well as Francesco Francavilla, who does the backup features, and even one full story arc, one full issue, that being the conversation between James Jr. and James Sr. That is the backup stories in the first three issues. And then he does the Lost Boys James Gordon story, which I'll just show my hand is easily the best issue of this entire run, because this is a run. That's basically what this is. This is his run on Detective Comics before being promoted to the Batman title. And this was 2010 through 2011. And then right afterwards, he went in to do Court of Owls. And this is back, you have to remember, when Dick Grayson is Batman. This is also when Grant Morrison is writing Batman Incorporated, and Tony Daniel is writing Batman. And what's funny is when they hit New 52 reboot button, Tony Daniel went on to writing Detective Comics and Snyder jumped to Batman, so they almost flip-flopped. So that's kind of cool and interesting. So yeah, that's the historical background. If there's anything I missed, you guys can just ask me questions.
Did Batman and Robin keep going past Morrison switching to Incorporated?
Yes. That's when Tomasi and Gleason got on. They did White Knight, I think is what their series was called, and then they continued doing Batman and Robin in all the way through the New 52.
Okay, because I read their New 52 stuff. I didn't realize they actually had started Pre-52. So I need to get that, because I absolutely love Born to Kill.
I haven't explained why Dick was Batman. I had to, like, when I was reading it, when I saw the cover, I thought, oh, this is just regular Batman. And then I saw, Dick Grayson's name. Like, oh, this is still Dick Grayson is Batman.
The trade thankfully gives a little blurb of, okay, Bruce is around, but he's doing Incorporated. Tim is Red Robin. And Damian is Robin.
See, I knew Red Robin because I recognized the costume. The animation, not the animation, the art kind of threw me off a little bit. To like a closer look. Oh yeah, he looks younger. That's probably Dick. I'm not good sometimes with faces. But yeah, Red, is there anything you know historically about this book?
Just everything Connor said. It's right before we rebooted stuff, and it is interesting that this is obviously the last we will probably ever, or this was the last, I guess, of Detective before the renumbering. So until Tinian's run, this was the last we would get of that continuous numbering from 27 for Batman. Obviously, continues from 1.
Gotcha. Okay,
hey,
well...
We're coming up on issue 1000
in like
a year.
Oh, wow.
What's cool, though, is...
not a year, but a decade.
Unlike Marvel, DC didn't do any number one plays with Detective or Action Comics. It was straight from one back in 1930 or 1930 whatever, and continued all the way through till 2011 without any renumbering, and it was just continual numbering. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so different than Marvel, who fucking masturbates into number ones.
We're number ones. We love number ones.
Like every time a new run starts or a new creative team gets on, they have to renumber it. It's obnoxious.
It is so hard to collect trades for Marvel
Oh,
or to look them up.
Okay, here's what's really funny, okay? Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, I think this is the title. I was at my comic shop, and it was in 2015. Like, Squirrel Girl it was Ant-Man, okay? Ant-Man had a relaunch in 2014, and then again in 2015. But then there was also Secret Wars, and then at the end of 2015, they relaunched Ant-Man again because it was post-Secret Wars. So on the back of the trade, it says, collecting Ant-Man 2015A, numbers 1 through 6.
Wow. I'm curious what they're gonna do with the Star Wars stuff because we already have 2 Vaders, but we're still doing the main Star Wars line. That's like we're going on 38 soon.
Yeah, it's weird that when Gillen takes over, we're just continuing the numbering. That I bet the moment they skip past Empire, it's gonna all of a sudden go back to number 1. But yeah, this like it's really fun just to go back to Dick being Batman, and I have some stuff with that, but like, and how it's handled to a point, but I really miss Dick Grayson as Batman.
I'm curious. I guess I'll start asking you this, Red. Just overall, do you think Black Mirror is an easy pickup for people, or do they need to know like a bunch of Grant Morrison stuff and why Dick is Batman? I mean, I got a little confused at first. I mean, once I knew it was Dick, I was kind of like, okay, Dick's Batman here. So it's like, story wise, I don't find it that troubling. But it's sort of like, do you need to know a bunch of stuff beforehand?
I mean, they put a blurb at the beginning. I think really the only thing you need to read for preparation for this story is year 1.
Okay, and I've read year 1.
Though you might be confused by the Essence stuff, and we'll get into the continuity there because there's some weird timeline shit going on that I'm a little confused by.
I probably didn't pick it up because I just don't know all the stuff in and out yet. But I'm sure there is. So I guess let's go overall thoughts first. Connor, let's start with you. What do you think of this book overall?
So, ever since I first read this, I've thought this is maybe the most overrated Batman comic, outside of maybe something that Tom King has written. Because here's the
fired.
thing.
Shots
Yeah, I don't care. I just read Rules of Engagement Part 1. It was fine. Oh my god. Anyways, sorry. War of Jokes and Riddles.
I still need to read that, and I'm having a panic attack. It's been 2 weeks.
Was really good. It was just really good. It wasn't great. Oh my god.
It was a work of genius.
It was a expertly structured story. So my thinking is, I got into comics in the New 52, so I pretty much just missed the boat on this story in terms of reading it in real time. And my thinking is that while I was reading Court of Owls, I was loving it, and it's really what got me into comics. I was really checking out comics, but then reading Snyder's Batman run, and especially Court of Owls, is what got me into comics. That and Grant Morrison's Action Comics, which is the most underrated thing to come out of New 52. So when I was reading Court of Owls, I was told time and again that, it's fine. It's just not Black Mirror. It's just not Black Mirror. And I read Black Mirror, and I like this story. I think it's decent, but it's very shocking just how little I feel Snyder has grown as a writer in all of his years writing Batman. He's still like falling into those same pitfalls. He still structures most of his stories the exact same way. And this shouldn't take away from the actual... I mean, if you've read his run on Batman from New 52, starting with Court of Owls and then going through Death of the Family, Zero Year, and like the stuff with James Gordon Batman, and you're now reading Metal, going back to this, it's very strange to me. Like, he never really shakes up his formula. He has a formula and he sticks to it. And I was really surprised how similar, after reading Court of Owls, like how similar that story is to this story, The Black Mirror, because like it has some themes and ideas going on. The 5th issue is the best issue, And then by the time you get to the final issue, everything is spelled out for you, and there's no reason to even really think about it anymore because they've already told you everything you need to know.
That's interesting. Do you think you would have felt differently if you had read Black Mirror first and then Court of Owls? Maybe like the reverse?
Maybe. It might have been a little disappointing reading Court of Owls being like, oh, it's largely the same thing as Black Mirror. And so, yeah, reading this, it made me like Court of Owls less. And then I feel like reading Zero Year, it's almost like he took this same formula of multiple shorter story arcs building into, culminating at the end. He kind of perfected it there, and I still think Zero Year is his masterpiece. But when it comes to something like this in Court of Owls, I just kind of remember them and go, yeah, they're pretty good, I guess. They're very new reader friendly. And my biggest problem here is I always, while I'm reading this, I always have to remind myself that this is Dick Grayson. And a lot of that comes down to word choice and how his character sounds. It sounds like his Bruce Wayne.
That's my big problem.
Read his Dick, it's the same character. And that's my biggest problem.
Art doesn't help for me in terms of faces and stuff too, but...
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to get into that. Jock is the most overrated comic book artist working today. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like I'm going to be the mean guy, but, all of his people look the same.
No, that's fine.
All of his people look... it's not like David Finch levels of, oh, my God, all of your women look like underfed porn stars. But, the face shapes and, his minimal, line detail in the faces, trying to have this jagged kind of... more expressionist look to it. His cityscapes and all that looks really good, but his figure work and his people don't really connect with me. And so it's
looking at the scene when Dick cuts open the whale. Gordon's face is just the exact same as Dick's, just with glasses and a mustache.
Yeah, exactly. That's where a lot of the art bothers me. And then you read Francesco Francavilla's stuff, and it is lush and gorgeous and emotionally evocative. And I feel like in that, I almost feel like they just cut a lot of the writing out of that particular Francavilla issue because the art communicates everything, the story so effectively. They didn't even need this, the words.
Here's an example. Every time I see Dick in the bat suit, I just think it's Bruce Wayne. There's not really a difference here. Oh, that's just Bruce Wayne in the bat suit.
They make a point at one point.
He has two gauntlet spikes. Mm-hmm. His belt is different, and his bat signal is different. His bat symbol is different.
Yeah, his belt's the Nightwing belt, but just gold. And the ears are slightly shorter. And, yes, they are. Other artists convey it really well. The way that Dick's drawn... there's a shot in Volume 3 of Batman and Robin. And that's all Quitely. And the way Quitely draws Dick next to Bruce, you can tell the difference. There's a different shade to the costume, and again, the ears, and there's just a different build to Bruce than there is to Dick.
Yeah, Dick is slender.
Yeah, even the way he fights, again, Frankly's so dynamic with his stuff that, when he's fighting alongside Damian, he doesn't fight the way Bruce does. There's a great scene in Batman 700 where he's, doing flips and stuff, and he's using the Eskrima sticks, which, again, that's a thing where if you can't get down how to draw Dick differently than Bruce, have him use Eskrima sticks. That's a good visual way to make that happen.
And also, I guess I'll close off my initial thoughts with this. Here's how you make, because, you're talking about Quitely, a lot of what I saw, Quitely doing and other artists doing on that Batman and Robin title is Dick is trying to pretend to be Batman. He doesn't feel in his heart that he is Batman, but it's something he needs to do because he feels duty bound to do so. And then Alfred tells him that it's you're playing a role when you're Batman. And so he's trying to his whole tough, hard demeanor is all an act. And the tell is his mouth will curl upwards slightly on the sides because Dick is a happy person. Mm-hmm. And the gimmick there was Dick Grayson is the lighthearted Batman, and then Damian is the hardcore, tough guy grimacing Robin.
Which transitions into my biggest thing with this. Where the fuck is Damian?
Okay, that's just that. Okay, well, that in particular, that's just a comic thing. This is a comic thing. This is Batman's Detective Comics. If you want Batman and Robin, go down the aisle a little bit and pick up Tomasi and Gleason.
Yeah, but the thing is, Tim is throughout this book, and don't get me wrong, I love. Well, I don't know if I necessarily completely like Snyder's voice for him, but Tim is in this book throughout. Couldn't Damian have been the one who does like the scene when they when Dick first sees like the whale, like when he's underwater, when he's underwater fighting those guys right after he escapes the collector guy, the dealer. That could have just been him and Damian. It didn't need to be Tim. And I know why Snyder did that and why he does it throughout his Batman stuff. He's talked about it before, and it's that he doesn't like writing Damian because he has kids that age, and he just doesn't like writing like a whole borderline serial killer kid character.
Yeah.
And I get that. It's just there's not even a mention of him. Like outside of the opening blurb of text in the trade, Damian doesn't come up in this story. And we're dealing with James being a father. Like, Dick is essentially Damian's, like, big brother / father. You'd think that come up.
Okay, then that's actually playing into one of my biggest criticisms. It's the same criticism I have for the Batman Year One. This is a Gordon story that's masquerading as a Batman story, and then, like, halfway through, it's like, who cares about Batman in this story? It's all about Jim Gordon. And then James Jr. becomes one of the most dull villains I can possibly think of, and just like won't shut up. He turns into a Scott Snyder villain and won't stop talking. And then it's like, oh, now I don't even really care about the Gordon stuff.
Yeah, and I'll get into that because there's some problems I have with that from an ableist thing. But yeah, he just you're right. He just writes him as essentially Bruce. And like, it's especially annoying when you have that point where like James is talking about how Dick's always genuine and always smiling, and like he's like, oh, and I saw you on the TV as Batman, and I knew it was you because you were smiling. Looking at that panel, he doesn't look like he's smiling.
Just to add to Red's point a bit, it's also hard because Red, you mentioned like Nightwing belt, and like I as a newbie, I'm the noob here still. Like I don't know what the Nightwing belt looks like. I can't tell the difference of the bat suit, so it's like. For me, I need, like, a little bit more context and just, like, maybe some more smiling or just, like, more snark or whatever Dick sounds like.
Again, like here, he doesn't really make quips. And, like, one of the things I liked about Dick Grayson as Batman and the other stuff, even Daniel kind of got this right, was he tries, like, he doesn't try to make jokes when he's Batman, but they will slip out from time to time, or, like, in his head, he'll come up with a wisecrack, but, like, bite his tongue. He doesn't do that here.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Just a little.
There's a distinct voice for Dick Grayson and a lot of stuff, and like Snyder uses Dick quite a bit throughout Court of Owls and stuff like that. And I don't know if he fully writes that character well at any point. Like he writes him decently in how he relates to Bruce, but I don't know if he ever finds his voice for him, especially because. I can't just throughout this could have been Bruce. Like, honest to God, Bruce was around at this point. You could have actually just done this as a Batman Incorporated story, or just had Bruce back in Gotham for a week. Because none of it really pertains to Dick as a person and how he operates. And, like, I guess you get a little bit here and there, but, like, he has no specific personality. He's just kind of your default Batman, and to the point on Snyder, this being very much a Snyder thing, the fucking black dot thing with the map, like that's such a Snyder thing, and it's really annoying where it just keeps coming back, and it's like this isn't some clever framing device. This isn't some like interesting, introspective looking at the character. It's just kind of like Snyder feels the need to open everything with some character narrating some theme that will come back repeatedly throughout the book. And it's always like way too like over dramatic and spelled out, and it never feels really human. And he just bends over backwards to make it fit. It's the exact same thing as like he does it with everything. Like he does it with the Gotham Is thing. He does it throughout Death of the Family. I think it's throughout Super Heavy. He does it in a lot of his All-Star stuff. Like, Snyder never tones that down. And it's so obvious here. And it just feels like the single most standard fucking Snyder story because of that. And then Gordon even starts doing it. And it's like, not every character has to have some introspective speech prepared that will conveniently line up with thematically what's going on.
I like the idea of when they're before Gordon goes out to the mission, like, I need to write my introspective speech just to make sure, just in case I have to make it.
Yeah. Hold on now. My Uncle Joe Bob once told me that when you eat a jar of pickles, the third one's always the worst one, because when the pickle farmers are getting up the pickles, they always know which one you're going to pick, and then so they always make the third one taste the worst. Now, this is interesting because while I'm saying this, I'm actually on a farm, and the third hole dug has a head stuck in it. Bum, bum, bum!
Exactly! Like, it always someone has some convenient saying that matches up perfectly. Or, like, the factoid thing, which shows up here with, like, the, "Bats eat goats. I'm clever!" Like, we get it, Snyder. You watch National Geographic.
Yeah.
Just, please stop. Because, like, he does that a lot throughout this, where, like, characters will randomly know factoids. And just, like, I get the sense that Snyder thinks that everyone in the DCU is the Riddler.
Well, I won't go that far. It's like...
They're Clue Master.
From a writing level, I get where the thing comes from. If this was a single story where every person kind of had that would be different than every story he's ever written doing this. And that's where a lot of the hesitation and frustrations come from, because I was like balls deep in my love for Snyder like 5 years ago. Like I thought he could do no wrong. I loved everything he did. But like the older I get and the more I read from him, like the more jaded and like frustrated I get by his writing. Like, for example, take All-Star Batman. Like, that is everything Snyder cranked up to 11. Everything bad and everything good cranked up to 11. Good action scenes that also do things that are way too like Rube Goldberg machine-esque. So then they kind of get too silly. And then you have like good dialogue, but then you also have overly expository dialogue. Like, I'm thinking about that time where like the KG Beast is like, "Let me tell you about seasteading. It is this practice of islands, and when you're on the island, you have complete law over that island." It's like, wow, you already know the plot, so 3 issues from now you can have a payoff to that setup. It's from a character level, I get it. It really
you
does.
made KG Beast speechify?
Yeah. Oh, you haven't
Wow.
read for Batman?
I knew KG Beast was in it. Who makes KG Beast speechify?
Well, I mean,
He's a character who should talk like twice in an issue.
Hey, now I've seen Batman v Superman, and I know he talks more than that.
Well, yeah, because he was working as
I'm-
sidekicks.
I'm-
I love the idea that he's actually Lex's janitor who he hired to be a mercenary. Like, is he Lex's janitor mercenary who's also a janitor, or is he janitor who's also a mercenary?
I like to think of it as
I
the
like to
latter.
kill, but I also like to clean the floors.
Like, he actually really cares about being a janitor. Like, it's his true passion.
Exactly.
You see, it's great because Lex sees it as, I have my assassin and field sanitation in one person. Really cut the cost that way. So when he shoot his head off, be sure to clean the scene of the crime. And he does. He burns those bodies like a champ. I feel like I got us way off topic. We're talking about Black Mirror.
Right.
I think the biggest strength about the story is its first half. I think the Black Mirror story is pretty good. It's a little weird when it becomes like body horror with monsters and creatures, but it's doing its own thing. And the backup stories that are in the trade collected as one, they're collected together after the Black Mirror storyline, where it's James Jr. and Commissioner Gordon in a diner talking to each other. That stuff is magnificent, and that's the sort of Snyder dialogue that I absolutely love, that naturalistic, pseudo-noir type, and then that Lost Boys issue. And it's an interesting thing that my favorite stuff in this book, is drawn by Francesco Francavilla, because Lost Boys is maybe the single best Batman comic issue written by Scott Snyder. Like, it is brilliant, I think. And that's the one where it's James Gordon, it's the story of James Jr. and like them going on vacation while Gordon is like finding this one killer in the wintertime. I find that a very haunting story. It's moving, it's creepy, it gets under my skin, and that gets me on a high that the story never recaptures. It's like immediately, like once I'm done with that, I'm like, oh my god, I am ready to move on, and then I get this really boring story about Roadrunner and a whale and stuff, and some crime boss's daughter, and it's like there's some cute stuff where it's like she's hot. Of course she's hot. She's a crime boss's daughter. Like that's the way it works.
That's standard. They have to be hot.
Yeah, and I think that like
which is funny knowing Dick Grayson's past.
Yeah,
it's the whole Huntress thing.
Yeah. So I like a lot of the dialogue here for so long. It's just that in the end, and like I'm becoming less and less forgiving of that, and it becomes more and more frustrating, where it's all the same stuff. Like it's the same pitfalls that Snyder's been falling in for years. And going back and reading this, it's like it's always been here, and it's really hard to be objective about this because I have the knowledge. Like I've read all of this stuff.
The more you just talk about Scott Snyder, the more I just think of Stephen Moffat. It seems like they're the same people. Or maybe they are.
One's British, though.
That is true. Or maybe one's doing an American accent. But anyway.
Plot twist.
What a twist. But yeah, reading this, I noticed that I finally realized when people say Scott Snyder does horror, because this seems like I can see the Halloween in it, which is good because we're doing this in October.
Yes.
That's why I suggested it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, you got people in masks. I saw what was it, Freddy or Jason? Not Jason Todd. The other Jason. The horror one.
There is a Jason thing that I like in this.
It's not that Jason. It's the one with the mask.
Yeah, I know.
Jason Voorhees reference in here, I think. And, just to feel like a bunch of horror stuff from all the cliche movies.
But yeah, I guess we should talk about the Collector. Cool concept. They go a little overboard with he's been operating Gotham for decades.
Yeah.
And no one's heard of him thing. We do that a lot with Snyder, with just the villain who's secretly been there the whole time that we didn't know about. Like, we could avoid that, but like the whole idea of people using other tech, like part of the Croc mutagen, which is some nice continuity, and you get the whole reference to Hatter, and the Jason Todd crowbar thing's interesting. I wish that was done. There was a little bit more done with it because it doesn't really serve much of a purpose here. It's just kind of like, wouldn't it be cool if he had the crowbar?
Yeah.
Like, you'd think that play a little bit more in with what's happening, or that Jason would maybe show up, but it doesn't really.
And, Dick is thinking, oh, man, if I was Bruce, I'd be mega triggered right now. I would just start kicking them all down and burning them.
Be like in Nightfall with that scene, like Jason, the one where Batman keeps saying Jason Todd over and over again.
Well, just pummeling Joker.
No.
And then Scarecrow pulls out a fucking bazooka. That is my favorite thing ever. Just get the bazooka!
I bet you Gotham took something from that. Get the bazooka.
Oh, they did. They fucking... Penguin kills the villain of Season 2 with a bazooka. Because he keeps getting resurrected. He shoots him with a bazooka on the lawn of Wayne Manor. And, Alfred brings it up in Season 3 where he's like, oh yes, the gardener was still picking up bits of Galavan, a month later. The mayor of Gotham City blew up the fucking or the future mayor of Gotham City blew up the fucking villain on the lawn.
Well, no wonder he got elected. I want a mayor like that.
Yeah, it's
corrupt and insane.
No, he has a certificate that says he's sane.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I like the Collector. I think some of the stuff is cool. The whole mixture fear toxin thing. The one thing that's kind of sad is there's a mention that this place that they're in being a thing that happened during No Man's Land, and there was a fire and shit. And I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity because Like, they say, like, oh, there was a banquet when the quake hit during, which he says No Man's Land. It would have been a Cataclysm, but, like, it's like, there was a banquet here. And at first, I thought it was a reference to a specific thing from Cataclysm, because I just read Cataclysm, like, a month ago. And I really wish it was this, because in Cataclysm, there's this banquet going on when the quake happens, and it's just an aftershock. And these people have been trapped there for, like, 3 weeks, and they're talking about how, like, time's running out, they're out of food, and so they're taking straws to see who has to die so they can eat them. And it's really fucked up. And like, Bruce is, like, trying to save them, and he's like, oh, yeah, this banquet was by, like, it was, like, some fundraiser by, like, some guy he knows, but isn't really friends with, but is a cool guy, and he's, like, talking about the person, like, yeah, he's a nice guy, he's done this stuff and this stuff. And then they keep talking about that guy in the banquet, or they're debating to kill this other guy, and then Bruce comes in, and the guy they're trying to kill shoots someone, and then he's like, I didn't mean to, but they're gonna kill me. Bruce is like, don't worry, I'll get you all help. And he's like, wait, where's, like, Frank or whatever? And they're like, we didn't mean to, but, he freaked out on us when we suggested eating someone, and like, you get the implication that they killed him and then ate him. And then it's like the moment where Bruce finally just breaks, where he, like, walks out into the middle of just the broken city and just screams angrily. And it's great. And I'm like, oh, is it going to be this place? No, it's just some generic, there was a fire and people got trampled. I know it's a really nitpicky thing, but it's so close to doing a really good continuity thing. And it's fucked up, so I would think that's the place the collector would choose. But yeah, I like this idea, and there's a reference to Flash in here, and that's a cool thing. But yeah, the Man Bat Serum thing, but afterwards, does the collector ever show up in Snyder's other stuff?
Oh, Roadrunner shows up.
And of course, Sophia shows up in not Sophia, what's her face? Zuko's daughter, what's her name?
I can't remember. Let's just say Sophia.
Yeah, she shows up in Higgins Nightwing.
Every time you say Roadrunner, I'm thinking of the actual Roadrunner for a few seconds.
So this is an interesting thing. I much prefer horror Snyder over science fiction. Whoa, Snyder. And I think that Roadrunner was his first step into that, like, whoa, sci-fi sort of thing. I guess it's more of like a sci-fi tech thing, where it's like he has a robot leg and he can jump really high, and I think maybe kick someone really hard. And so
I tried to say, Dick breaking his legs is so out of character. I don't care how much he's trying to play Batman, especially after everything that happened to Barbara. I do not buy Dick doing that.
Yeah, 1 second though. The thing is, what I was saying was I much prefer horror Snyder, where he's kind of playing more on atmosphere, and the reason I like it more is because he relies more on his artists to help tell the story. And I feel like the longer he's been writing Batman, the more he's kind of been going into a direction that I less prefer. And in doing so, it is more look at me writing sensibilities instead of let's let the art and the the art and the words tell a story together. And I think Roadrunner was kind of his first step into that world of he's going to have a robot leg. So anyways, let's talk about him breaking his legs.
Yeah. Dick wouldn't do that. This is not Bruce in the Batsuit. Even Bruce would, I think, like, I think it's an excuse of like, oh, it's a robot limb. You're still crippling a guy.
But I agree with you, Connor, on the horror stuff, because when I see like the beginning of this book, it's very horror-y, like very just general scary with some nightmare fuel creatures. Even Zero Year had a bit of that with what was his name?
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death. Thank you. I always forget. But yeah, I think, and everyone else has said that Snyder's more of a horror person anyway. That's where his strength lies, and I agree with that. Red, do you want to take us in a direction?
Well, one more thing to add with the leg thing. It's especially weird since Dick has a thing about that. like we have the flashback thing, or not the flashback, the dream sequence with his legs being gone, because that's a whole thing with why that fucking relationship can't work, is Dick sees Barbara as broken partly and has a lot of problematic shit there.
But wouldn't Dick also not break his legs because he used to be an acrobatic in the circus? He should know a few tricks.
Well, that, and also Dick's just a decent guy. He wouldn't do that kind of shit. Like, he's not... Even Bruce wouldn't do that, especially at this point. It's just one of those things where I don't really think this is Dick Grayson. Like, it would work better if it was Bruce. But, yeah, the Roadrunner isn't that great, and... Yeah, Snyder's not great with gangs and shit like that. Like,
I think he's trying to make his own arsenal of Dick Grayson villains in a similar way that Grant Morrison was doing with like Professor Pig and Red Hood, and it's less successful than that.
Yeah, I think the big reason why is Morrison's villains. Like, we get the whole thing like, oh, this guy's like a new kind of criminal, but the thing that worked with Morrison's was they still kind of connected to Dick. Like, they were all circus people.
Yeah, like Flamingo and such.
Yeah, it really fit. They were flamboyant. It fit with who Dick Grayson was. But yeah, I mean, Tiger Shark is back. This story brings him back, and he's around still. He's in the Sealy stuff. So I guess that one stuck. But yeah, other than him, none of these villains really came back that often.
That's always a shame when things don't always come back. I'm a big fan of reoccurring characters.
Yeah, but I can live with it with like, does Roadrunner really need to be like a reoccurring
No,
Batman villain?
I'm just talking in general. I mean, not, Roadrunner or something like that.
It's sad because you could have made him a villain who actually like is like really fast at running and puts up all kinds of traps for. Wait, then he'd just be the spook, I guess. So that wouldn't work. Well, then again, Damien.
Shouldn't he be called the Coyote though? If he's putting up traps. That somehow.
His name's Wiley, nickname the Coyote.
Exactly. Wiley Coyote would make a
I-
good Batman villain.
He would. That should have been the team up, not Elmer Fudd. It should have been Wile E. Coyote. But yeah, I guess we should go into the James Gordon Jr. stuff. I like the idea of going back and doing stuff with James, but the way the story handles mental illness is really problematic and frustrating.
Don't do that kind of stuff unless you know what you're talking about. That's my rule.
Well, it seems like he put in some research, but then it's like, so he's on the medication, and it starts to work, and then he's just like, oh, but I'm super evil, and it's trying to create fear and stuff like that out of that. And I get that these are Batman comics, and they've never been good with that, and that's kind of just a thing you have to somewhat accept. But don't acknowledge the fact that it is a problem, and then perpetuate the problem.
Yeah.
And just, especially after Telltale Batman, it's hard to look back at stuff that doesn't handle that right, because that really showed that you can do a good Batman story and use characters like the Joker while still understanding, like being good towards mental illness.
Right. I remember when you told me what the first thing when the Joker first appeared and how that was such a cool idea. What they did with him. I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't played that game.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's a cool idea, but they do nothing with it. I mean, I kind of like the subtle setup for the mutants. That's cool. Because obviously the next generation of Gothamite children will have, mental problems because of this, and so that sets up the mutant gang, I guess. But at the same time...
That Batman Beyond thing, or...
That's Dark Knight Returns. It's the gang from DKR.
Oh, okay.
The problem is, I think it actually hurts DKR, because the point there was it was a social thing. It was, the growth of violence in this kind of stuff, and it was kind of playing on... It was essentially satirizing, the Reagan administration and the, essentially acting like the youth was all a bunch of crazy, murderous people and that kind of shit. There was a more of a point there in Dark Knight Returns. Here, it's just nope, they were crazy. It essentially replaces complex social problems. Like, Snyder essentially right there just replaced complex social problems with, nope, they're just mentally ill people and they're crazy.
I'm
Which
crazy.
is really problematic.
Yeah. Connor, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. I think I agree with you. The thing is, I'm really not educated in that field, so I don't really want to make statements about it unless I know what I'm talking about. But I see your point of view. And
And I really wish we had Alex. Really wish we could just pull Alex in for like 5 minutes and have him teach us all something.
Alex or Steve or somebody.
Which is why this stuff makes me uncomfortable, because I'm not qualified for this kind of thing either. And I'm like, but I know there's a problem, but I don't know how to exactly voice the problem. But
I
yeah,
mean, if this was physical disabilities, then I'm here to be your educator. But mental disabilities, like, I mean, I've dealt with it because, sadly, both the mental and physical disabled people kind of get smushed together a lot of the time. It's not fun. But I don't think I could say that for those kinds of mental disabilities. I know a little bit about autism. Anyway, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll get into the continuity stuff. They change around the stuff with Sarah, and it's kind of weird. Because, like, here it seems almost like Gordon
he
and
named
Barbara.
his daughter after his ex-wife.
Well, no, because canonically, Barbara, in this time in continuity, was his niece.
Okay, can you please explain this to me? I've never got this, and I've been too lazy to go and like really do my research. So
Okay,
I'm gonna. Can I hit the easy button and ask you how this works?
Ooh, I get to explain random weird Batman lore. Okay, so, Frank Miller was doing it year one, and he had the whole plan of, okay, they're gonna have a kid. And he named the wife Barbara because there's an offhanded reference to Jim's wife being named Barbara somewhere in old continuity, apparently. And the fact that he had, what did he even know about that? I think he did. Yeah, because her name is Barbara. I think is mentioned in like the 70s or something. So he tries to continue that, and he wants the child to be Barbara Gordon, like their daughter, and so she's named after her mother. But they realized that the continuity wouldn't line up correctly because Babs was already in like her late 20s to early 30s at this point in continuity, especially in the 80s. Like in Killing Joke, she's like 28 or something. Like it wouldn't line up. Obviously, that story hadn't come out yet, but you know what I mean.
Isn't Killing Joke not technically canon, though? Or what?
What I'm talking about, though, is at this time in continuity, Barbara's supposed to be older.
Okay.
Like, she would already be, like, 15 when Bruce becomes Batman.
Oh.
Or, like, 13.
Gotcha.
And so, they had to find a way around that. And so, someone pointed out that, and I assume it's like Archie Goodwin or someone, that there's one Golden Age issue where Jim makes a reference to the fact that he has a son. And I think his son's name is Tony in that, but we don't meet him. And so he's like, well, maybe when the universe resets, that son was more important, and so they have a son, James Jr. And so that's how James Jr. came into being. And I don't remember exactly what the whole Barbara wife thing, but I think that was something in continuity. And so what happened was, it was still confusing because it's like, well, then when does Barbara show up? And so I forget where this first appears, but I think it's not year 2. It's somewhere else. And then Long Halloween makes this point again with the fact that Barbara is his niece, because I know for sure Long Halloween references this. And I think the comics, like the ongoings at the time, also make a point of Babs is Jim's niece, whose parents died when she was like 6 or something, and so she lives with the Gordons. Like she lives with Jim, and it essentially thinks of her as her father because she doesn't really remember her dad at all. And so, that's the direction they went with moving forward. And then randomly Devin Grayson decided to make Jim Gordon even more of a deplorable human being by hinting in an issue that he fucked his brother's wife and knocked her up with Barbara. Because Devin Grayson makes me angry. But I just ignore that. So, yeah, she's his niece and adopted daughter, and so that's how that continuity is supposed to work. Except for now, in New 52, we're back to the biological daughter thing.
Hey, at least Gordon naming her Barbara makes more sense than if that ever happened in Gotham, I'll tell you that much.
I think Gotham's gonna full on just do the niece thing.
I hope so at this point.
Just act like she's been there the whole time.
I hope so.
By the way, thanks for explaining that. That's like most children in comic situation, overly convoluted.
Oh yeah, but yeah, the whole wife thing, like, because in the comics the idea was Essen was, Gordon and Essen had the affair during year 1, and then she left, and then it was this idea that continuity-wise it's Night Cries, which is Violet Goodwood, where Barbara leaves and takes James Jr. And it's because Jim is like much older continuity-wise in the 90s, like he's like in his 60s almost, and it's in an Alan Grant issue from '89, actually the first appearance of Harold, the mechanic, where he gets mentioned previously, but the first appearance of Harold is where Essen comes back, and then they get engaged in Electric City, which is the first arc of Dixon's run, and then they're married, obviously throughout all this stuff, and she gets killed in No Man's Land. And that it's weird here because that would still be continuity. Like, even though we've aged Jim down about like maybe 5 years, the idea that Essen came back into his life much later, like Babs was already in the chair when Essen came back continuity-wise, and that's still canon. And yet here, she's like hanging out with the family, and Jim and her seem to be married already by the time of Babs not being Batgirl yet, and James Jr. is still with the family, and it's really weird.
You want more?
Yeah.
Like I don't get that, because again, the Essen thing seemed to be sticking with continuity, and then just all of a sudden we changed that, and it seems like Jim married Essen like right after Barbara left.
Huh.
And it's really confusing, especially because I just read through all of that stuff, and so I'm like, but it's not what happened. Like, it's really confusing as to when Babs became back, especially because then this means that even if it happened right after, the timeline's just weird there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially,
it's the DC timeline.
Well, now that I think about it, though, James is like 7 or 8. So time would have had to pass. But then why does Barbara look like 14?
If you want, you can just retcon it to bad artistry.
Wait, no. So, no, because she has like her friend, and she's like going around with them and isn't in the chair yet. So 8 years, so hold on. 8 years pass since Bruce becomes Batman. So what, are we saying that Babs gets paralyzed in like I guess she could have been paralyzed in year 8. But no, because she's not even Batgirl yet. So James Jr. is like 7 or 8 years old. That means Babs doesn't become Batgirl until like a year before she gets paralyzed.
That's a short
and
time
also
to be
make her,
Batgirl.
and that would also make her like 21 in this story, which makes the fact that Dick's like 30 really creepy. Yeah, the continuity there is really off.
How would that make Dick creepy? She's 21.
I mean, like, but they've been dating for years. They're not dating now. They've been dating since, like, he says they took her to prom. If Dick's, like, 25 when that happened.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. Hey, kids, what's up?
I really want to see Dick Grayson at a prom. He's, completely, like, undercover, but, like, way too old. He just shows up at Dick Gray's prom.
She's dating a man who can legally drink.
Yeah, this gets that. Wow, I just broke that down and got really uncomfortable. This whole thing
turns into a 21 Jump Street situation.
This whole thing is just really off. oh god, they're gonna do the Transformers thing with the piece of paper that says it's okay.
Oh, come on! I was trying to eject that from my mind.
That's why I brought it up.
I mean, to be fair, once you're like 20 and you're dating an older man, I don't care what you're doing, but if you're a
But you
teenager,
don't bring a 25-year-old to prom.
that's exactly my point. You don't do
It's
that.
so weird. Yeah, just no.
If both parties are over 20 at that point.
Like, people make the Bruce and Babs thing, like out to be insane, and it's like, at least usually when that's hinted at in, in the animated series, it's a little bit older. This is just, stop with the sliding time, or do the sliding time scale. You don't need to change that. Like, I mean, I just, yeah, because when did Babs become Batgirl? She must have been back for like a year. And would have had, and again, would have had to been parent, like, because yeah, if it's 7 years later into continuity, and we're like probably what, like, well, James is like 21 here, so, or he's like 18 here, like, so what, has it been 18 years since Bruce became Batman?
So see, this is why I stopped paying a lot of attention to like continuity over decades, because it will make your head explode.
But the problem is, this is like, we kind of stuck with it pre-52, like, and you could have made this work if James is like 16. Well, even if he's 16, man, this continuity is weird. Like, did James get?
See, this is why it's called Detective Comics, because we're trying to piece it all together.
They're trying to make you into a detective. Yeah, wow.
You are Batman.
I guess you could argue that, like, okay, the fucking time stream just got... No, because we were back to multiverses, weren't we? Because Infinity Crisis. Infinite Crisis brought back the multiverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So we're back to that, so we can't even do the time stream excuse of, oh, well, the time fluctuated, and so it mixed two universes, one in which the ages were pulled back.
Where's Doctor Who when you need him?
I really like the time stream thing. Can I just say that? Like, hyper time is a much better thing because it's so easy to make excuses with it.
This is why I'm
I still have to pull shit out of my ass, but it's not as much.
We really got on a tangent from Black Mirror, didn't we?
This always happens with me where I just, like, take shit way too seriously with continuity and then realize, oh wait, this writer doesn't care.
This is why this is why you're not a Doctor Who fan, Red. It's like every episode is retcon something.
I am a Doctor Who fan, though.
I bet. Oof.
So, you know what's funny, guys?
Yeah.
I just realized that watching season 3 of Twin Peaks with Red would be a very interesting experience, because there's like some weird editing snafus where like a character says they found a bit of information earlier today, 4 episodes after they found that information, and it's very evident that days have passed since then. And it's like, when they found that information, they're like, yeah, the day after tomorrow is when we need to find that information, and then 5 episodes later, it's the day after tomorrow. But the episode prior, it was earlier today, but then the 3 episodes in between, it was a bunch of time passing. It would be really funny to watch you watch that, because you'd get really confused.
I would totally
But none of it
try
really
to explain
matters.
it all.
But none of it really matters, because like the log lady at one point, like, basically what she says is, yeah, time's gonna get really crazy. Just watch out, everybody.
See, that's all I ask for. Just give an explanation of shit's been crazy.
Oh, you try Once Upon a Time continuity. By the end, they're just squeezing entire adventures into like a week just because they need to get to a certain point. And all these characters know each other, yet they never mentioned it previous seasons ago.
Hate it when that happens.
When did Rumpelstiltskin have time to meet Elsa and Anna from Frozen? When did this happen? Oy. But yeah, anything we should else want to mention about Black Mirror?
Also, it's Sonya. I finally found the name of Zuko's kid.
All right. I got a question for you, Red.
Okay.
Is there anything you liked about this story?
I really do like the collector stuff. You're right, Lost Boys is a great issue. I kind of like some of the stuff with Babs being kind of like a hard ass when it comes to everything with James Jr. Like, and that's why I really wish Dick was more happy-go-lucky, because it's kind of cool to contrast where like everyone takes after Bruce in different ways, and on some level, Barbara kind of is more like Bruce than Dick is, especially with how she treats James Jr. And like that's kind of lost. I like the Bullock scene where he's on the roof.
It's Bullock, dude. I mean, he's not Gotham Bullock, but still Bullock.
Oh, it should have been Gotham. I totally can imagine Donald Logue, though, having that line.
So, Joel, I feel like I haven't gotten a good sense of what you thought of this. Did you want to go off for a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I guess, I'm gonna be the middle guy. I mean, I liked it. You boys both pull out a lot of issues and problems, but being kind of the newbie to comics, I just kind of read it on its own. It's like, it's a fun adventure. I agree with you, Connor, when you say, it's very much for beginner readers. And I consider myself that when it comes to these comics, even though I do have a lot of the classics with me. It's definitely, I think I liked the 0 Year more. I think that was an easier read. This was a bit long, but it is an entire run, so I understand that. And again, my biggest issue again is like, there's no way I can define that this is the difference between Bruce and Dick. If like I wasn't paying attention really, like if I was like oblivious and didn't see it was Dick and I didn't read the blurb and it was like, oh, this is just Bruce Wayne doing his Batman stuff. It's only when I would actually see him out of costume do I realize, oh wait, yeah, he looks younger. I had to reread one part because I thought Alfred got shot for a few seconds, but then
Wait, where?
Yeah.
Oh, it's one scene where somebody gets shot and the person's like, "There's a bat. There's a bat." Oh, I don't know where it is and I lost it. Dang. But he looked like Alfred for a few seconds. Like,
Oh, that's hilarious.
He had the mustache. It's like, they shot Alfred. I don't remember this happening.
It is Snyder. He does love to randomly make Alfred suffer.
Poor Alfred.
Like, let's cut his hand off and then stitch it back on like 5 minutes later.
Yep.
Fuck Endgame.
Poor Alfred.
I actually liked that one reading with it, and then afterwards I'm just like, well, that was a waste of my goddamn time.
Poor Alfred. I love Alfred. He's like my favorite character, kind of, in Batman.
It doesn't matter like how bad of a writer you are. It's pretty hard to screw up Gordon and Alfred. It's really hard to screw up those characters.
Alfred's like the universally beloved Batman character, I feel like.
It's funny, though, because both of them weren't really the characters we know and love until, like, kind of Miller, and then weren't really fully defined until Dixon. I guess Alfred kind of was who he was previously, just more bumbling than not sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to read. Like, an Alfred who doesn't snap back at Bruce constantly is just really weird.
No real quibbles. I love Alfred's little quibbles. I like especially like in the Batman the Animated Series. I think it's like Mask of the Phantasm where he says like, "I diapered your bottom, sir." He says that once. It just makes me laugh.
And only Alfred and Terry have the distinct pleasure of saying that.
You're right.
I stole that from Manos, and I do not apologize.
But overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not like my favorite Batman comic I've read so far, but it was fun for what it was, I think. And that would be just my overall thoughts, to be quite honest.
I guess I have one question for you. Would you be at all interested in reading other Dick Grayson Batman stories, or does this not really phase you at all? It doesn't even make a difference to you if this is Dick or Bruce.
This one, no. I thought I didn't really tell a difference between Dick and Bruce. I know there probably is a difference. Believe me, when I wanted to pick up Batman and Robin, the Grant Morrison one, just to see what that's like.
Yeah, we'll get you through the Morrison run, and you will love that stuff. Because, like, and then you'll feel really sad and empty inside because you realize that we're never going to go back to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen little images of like a more smiling Batman, but with this one, it's more like you could.
There's that scene in 700 where him and Damien, after beating up some crooks, go and get burgers and smoothies, and burgers and milkshakes. It's the most adorable thing.
That sounds awesome.
Like,
McDonald's.
I'm just like, why is this not every Batman issue?
Fast food with
Who
Batman.
Who the fuck cares about dark and gritty Batman? I want Batman eating fucking French fries and drinking a milkshake.
But I thought Damien was a vegetarian because of Bat Cow.
Well, that comes later. That comes later.
Yeah. That's New 52 with him, which I do love. Damien as a vegetarian is the best.
But sadly, yeah, this is. I could honestly, you could replace Dick with Bruce, and I wouldn't tell a difference if you didn't say anything.
So I feel like Morrison is. I guess I would, if we ever talk about the Morrison run, this is what I would say. Like, ever since Morrison, we had like some Danielle, but it was really that was more subservient to the Morrison stuff. But we had Snyder, and now we have King, and it's like they're two extremes on like either side of the pendulum. And then it's like Morrison was the sweet spot, and I really want to go back to Morrison. I love his work so much.
Do you think that?
Well, he's doing Arkham Asylum too.
That's true.
That's true.
Do you think like Snyder and Tom King were like sprouted from Grant Morrison, but one came from the dark side and the other the light? And Grant.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Morrison's so Morrison dialogue is something to behold. Like, it gets in, gives you all the crucial information, cuts out all the fat, and then gets on with it. I think that Tom King is far too vague, and his lyrical dialogue makes me want to shoot my brains out. I hate him, and I hate his dialogue with Batman and Catwoman. It drives me absolutely crazy. But then you have stuff like, what's his face, Scott Snyder, where his dialogue is far too expository and like needs to explain every bit of information to you. And it's like, can I just have a sweet spot? Like,
no. You have to understand why this is so clever. Let me have 5 more paragraphs.
Like, there's a great part in Batman R.I.P. where the Joker keeps saying, "Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it?" And it's like, I don't feel ashamed at like that first time I was reading. I went, I don't get it.
Speaking of the Joker,
I don't think Batman gets it either. So it's like I feel like I'm on the same page here.
It takes me like 3 fucking readings and talking to Steve to understand the red and black.
Yeah.
Speaking of Joker and Grant Morrison, I have one of the Grant Morrison. I think it's Batman and Son. I think that's the one that's it. And I always remember this one scene. Like, I don't remember the rest of it because I haven't read it in a while, but there's one scene, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, and it's when Joker's talking about how when Batman built a box, Joker built another box around that box, and then...
Oh, it's the R.I.P. line where he says...
That's it, R.I.P.
Every time I think outside the box, he just builds a bigger box. And the whole part being Batman recontextualizes everything. Because the Black Glove is trying to create the ultimate Batman story... And because they know the story and because they know how Batman works, they can kill him. And Joker's point is, no, don't you get it? You are now in his world. You are in a Batman story, and you know it on a meta level. And now he is Kane. It goes all the way back to that thing from it's the first time we ever saw Morrison write Batman and his proclamation of I am the King of Hell. And like he is the one who contextualizes everything. He's larger than all of that.
But yeah, but
and now he's the King of Hell, and you're in his world now.
Yeah, and even though I probably got that whole line, just passed over my head in terms of all the themes and stuff, but I just remember that line. It's like, this is a really good piece of dialogue right here.
Isn't that
that's R.I.P.
That's the prologue of R.I.P., right?
No, that's a few pages.
No, it's when he snaps the guy's neck at the party, and he like grabs all the chips.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
That great scene where they're like, he's paralyzed, buried under like 10 feet of dirt, in a straitjacket, in a fucking coffin that's steel enforced. And Joker's like, yeah, exactly. I give you 5 minutes. Just
that's one of my favorite parts where he's like, that's hard.
Joker
but
eating
far
chips.
from impossible. And that shot of him climbing out of the grave with the lighting, I fist pump Every time.
That intro of just black, but that's the thing. It's like black Batman eyes, but that's the thing about Batman. Full image of him in the straitjacket, he thinks of everything.
Like every time me and my brother Spencer are in a hard, sticky situation, I always say, "But that's the thing about Batman. He thinks of everything," and I try to figure out how to get out of the situation.
But yeah. So, did we talk about everything we need to talk about? Any last minute thoughts or feelings? Or...
Yeah, I think we got through it.
I guess the crime lab thing. I like that idea that they're too prideful to use the lab. That feels very in line with Gotham Central.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like that.
I wouldn't tell because I didn't know Gotham Central. I feel like I should have known some other behind the scenes stuff with this.
Well,
story.
what's interesting about that is it brings up a conversation that's kind of interesting, and that being like there's the whole thing of, hey, you rich people, why aren't you helping us out? You should help out and donate to your community and whatnot. And then when they do, there's this weird sense of they're too prideful to accept the handout. So it's like this weird paradox of how do you want me to help you? And so I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the fact that even Gordon is definitely a part of that.
Yeah.
Because again, it's such like I've been reading Gotham Central. Like I'm looking at the trades right now because I'm halfway through. Like that. That's so something that Marcus Driver would say.
Wasn't Bruce at this time doing a lot of like economics in Gotham at this point?
Yeah, he was essentially institutionalizing, or he's making Batman an institution. That's very different than institutionalizing Batman. But yeah, he makes Batman into an institution. That's the whole point of Incorporated. He makes Batman a corporation. And all
Batman is a jobs creator.
He is, and it's the best. And Incorporated's a thing of genius.
Every year I try to read through the entire Morrison run. And the last couple of years I've gotten into Final Crisis and then I just run out of time. So I'm really looking forward to going back to Incorporated because I never made it past that first issue because in the months of November and December I try to read as much as I possibly can. And then if it makes it to January, time out, I have to start again next year. So I have read Batman and Son more times than I can count. But
I always remember another.
I have a similar thing with rereading Morrison. I mean, I'm about there because I'm on the right, like one issue left in the third trade of Gotham Central. I have Dini's Detective, like 2 arcs of that, and then right on to Morrison.
Ooh.
And then I end with Streets of Gotham, which isn't going to be perfect, but eh.
Another Morrison thing I always liked, which again involves Joker, is when he thinks he kills Batman in front of a bunch of kids, and he just goes, "Now bring me Santa Claus."
That's one of my favorite
I did it!
moments.
I finally killed Batman and a bunch of helpless disabled children. Next, bring me Santa Claus. And I love the fact that he says Santa Claus. That's just such a Joker line.
I think he says Santa.
Does he?
I've read that panel at least 20
there
times.
goes a good night.
Well,
then
Christmas. Morrison needs to pay for that.
Well, if he doesn't say Santa Claus, he makes it up because there's the Joker helicopter. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, the Joker copter. That moment when he just starts laughing, he's like, I spent thousands on a fucking Joker copter and I don't know why.
That sounds like something he'd do, though.
Well, Joker is such a, overspender. It's great. His credit card company must fucking hate him.
He must have terrible credit.
Probably not. He robs a bank and gives them a bonusly huge size premium, so...
You're right, he just says Santa. Wow.
No Nightmare Before Christmas reference, then.
Ever taken an acid trip? Hydraulic, that is. God.
I know, hydrochloric, that is.
Hydrochloric. But what if hydraulic acid? That does not make sense.
That's very different.
I don't science.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm fact checking. I've read that issue way too many times. I think I need to read it more. Apparently. All right, I think we've exhausted. Like we've talked about Morrison for a very long time. I think we've exhausted Black Mirror.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I guess my statement on it. It was okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I find it unremarkable, especially now, and I can imagine why it was such a big deal. Like there's a very big difference between reading something as it's coming out monthly and then just reading the collection.
Oh yeah, and I have to read the
Endgame is my perfect example of that.
And for me, that's what a lot of Snyder's New 52 work is for me. Like I loved Court of Owls, and I still really like that story. But after that final issue, I like a lot of it less. And then there's Death of the Family, which reading that monthly was kind of meh. But those last two issues I thought were really awesome reading it monthly. And I honestly, I haven't read it since I read it monthly. And then Zero Year was like an absolute treat. I can't believe how spoiled I was in 2013 to 2014. I could go to the comic shop and on the same day buy an issue of Zero Year and then buy an issue of Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman. Like oh man, I would honestly go back to those days of like, I'm going to read the next issue of these two incredible stories.
See, I'm at that right now because Batman and Nightwing come out on the same day.
Oh, yeah?
But I've got, fucking 3 weeks, and then Seeley's off Nightwing. And so I'm kind of,
Seeley and Humphreys are trading titles with Nightwing and Green Lanterns.
It's so sad.
Well, you can have Humphreys because he's not that great of a writer.
Well, great!
Yeah!
Though I do have Nightwing the New Order.
For long enough.
I do have Nightwing the New Order, so I have Higgins on Nightwing right now. It's only lasting for a few more months, but he's so good. I miss him so much.
Wasn't Higgins and King writing Grayson, or was that
that was Seeley and King?
Okay.
Because Higgins, I think he actually quit Nightwing, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
He specifically left. I know a lot of DC writers were doing that at that time. Because, Lemire did, just a few years, just a year later, right?
Yeah, Lemire, his story's interesting. And then there was the great exodus from Marvel, where Hickman, DeConnick, Fraction, all of them just started leaving.
Speaking of Matt Fraction. Yeah,
Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, who, by the way, those two are married. And then I took Kelly Sue DeConnick's comic book writing class. It was awesome. Bendis and Aaron are the only two big notable writers at Marvel right now.
I just imagine the Marvel offices, and it's literally just those two.
Yeah.
Completely alone.
Because, Lemire's kind of the newbie there, and his work at Marvel has been granted with a lot less acclaim than his work at DC. And then Charles Soule has kind of become a hit or miss writer. And then there's Kieran Gillen, he's a dark horse there, but I don't know.
I like Gillen.
That's why I'm saying he's a dark horse. Not a lot of people really know him, but those who do really do like him. And he's been there for a long time. It's just kind of interesting how he isn't a bigger name than he is. It's just kind of interesting, though. The two big hotshot names that they throw on a title to try to get him to sell are Bendis and Aaron. So.
Oh, they still got Bun.
Yeah, but he's freelance.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But Lemire is also coming back to DC right now because he's doing the Terrifics.
Yeah, that's why I say he's freelance. He works for both.
It's interesting you brought up Matt Fraction, because he actually did write something that I have. He wrote from a story in a certain point of view. It's not a comic, but it's a book.
Oh, what's that?
It's a bunch of short stories that it's a retelling of episode 4 from the perspective of background characters. 40 stories.
Oh, cool.
Very
cool. The Dianaga gets a fucking story.
That's the swamp creature in the trash compactor in A New Hope.
Okay, I was thinking... By the way, did you know the Trash Monster is Nicolas Cage's favorite Star Wars character?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's Nicolas Cage.
My
The trash monster, my favorite Star Wars character. He's awesome.
Okay. And with that, folks, I think we're gonna call it quits for tonight. So, thanks, guys. This was fun.
No.
Signing off, everybody. Later.